At 3 a.m., a woman ran through the rain like the darkness itself was chasing her. She carried a baby wrapped in white, held tight to her chest, one hand over the child's head, shielding her from the downpour. She stopped at a gate. Iron. 12 feet tall. The kind of gate that says, "Whatever is inside here does not concern you." She knelt down, pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead for a long, breaking moment. Then she stood up, looked straight at the security camera above the gate, and ran. No one saw her face clearly. No one knew her name. But inside that compound, every screen lit up at once. And Kang Hyun-soo, a man who had never once been caught off guard in 15 years, sat forward in his chair and stared at the image of a woman disappearing into the rain. "Find her," he said quietly. Not because she'd threatened him, because she'd left something behind that he couldn't explain. And a note that said 4 words he would never forget. "She is your daughter." If you have ever watched a story and felt it living inside your chest long after it ended, this channel is where you belong. Hit subscribe right now and turn on your notifications because this story is only getting started. What that note really means, what this woman was running from, and what Kang Hyun-soo does next, none of it is what you think. Stay with me. Let's go. His security team had the baby inside within 4 minutes. Warm. Dry. Fed. She had been fed recently, his head of operations noted, as if that detail mattered. It mattered to Hyun-soo. It told him the woman hadn't run out of desperation alone. She had planned this. Prepared for it. That made her more dangerous than a threat. It made her a mystery. He stood over the bassinet his housekeeper had improvised from a laundry basket and looked at the child the way you look at something that has no business existing in your world. The baby looked back at him with wide, dark eyes and did not cry. He unfolded the note again. It was written on the back of a legal document, torn carefully, deliberately. The handwriting was precise. Controlled. The hand of someone trained to be exact even when falling apart. "She is your daughter. Her name is Arya. I cannot keep her safe. You can. Please. I will come back when I can. If I can. Her birthday is March 4th. She likes when you hum. I am sorry. Z." He read it 3 times. Then he turned to Marco, his second in command. "Pull every camera within 2 miles. Every frame from the last 6 hours. You want us to find her?" Marco asked carefully. "I want to know who is chasing her," Hyun-soo said. "Because whoever it is, they just made the mistake of driving her to my gate." He looked at the baby again. "Arya." She blinked at him slowly, like she had already decided he was safe. He had never felt less sure of anything in his life. The footage took 3 hours to compile and 40 minutes to review. What it showed, a woman who knew exactly where every camera was. She had approached from the one blind spot on the north side of the property, a gap his team had identified 6 months ago and flagged for correction. The correction had not yet been made. She had used that gap precisely. "She's done surveillance on this property," Marco said. "Or she had access to someone who has," Hyun-soo replied. That narrowed it significantly and widened it terrifyingly. The number of people with access to his security assessments was small. Trusted. Carefully chosen. One of them had talked. He rewound the footage to the moment she knelt at the gate. Zoomed in. Her face was angled away from every camera except one, a secondary unit mounted low that most people didn't know existed. For 2 seconds, the lens caught her profile. High cheekbones. Locks pinned back. A jaw set so hard it looked like it might crack. She was not crying. That struck him more than anything. A woman leaving her child in the rain at the gate of a man she had never met, and she was not crying. She was calculating. "She's not running from something small," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" Marco asked. "Crying is what you do when you're afraid." She wasn't afraid. He paused. She was determined. There's a difference. And it means whoever is after her, she's already accepted what it might cost her. The room was quiet. "Find the legal document," he said. The note was written on the back of something. "I want to know what." 3 days passed. No sign of the woman. No trail. No name beyond a single initial. But Arya was still there. Hyun-soo had arranged for a full-time nurse, discreet, vetted, professional. He had done everything correctly and at a precise distance. And yet, at 2 a.m. on the third night, when the nurse reported that Arya would not stop crying and nothing was working, Hyun-soo found himself standing in the doorway of the room they'd set up, watching his staff fail to soothe a 7-month-old child. He stepped in without quite deciding to, took her carefully with the rigid caution of someone handling something irreplaceable and breakable and completely outside their expertise, and with no idea why, began to hum. Low, tuneless. Something half-remembered from a place in himself he hadn't visited in years. Arya stopped crying in 11 seconds. She pressed her small face against his chest and closed her eyes. And Kang Hyun-soo, who had stared down generals, judges, and men who wanted him dead, stood completely still in the dark, afraid to move, holding a 7-month-old child like she was the most fragile thing in his world. Because she was. The note said she likes when you hum, which meant Zara Calloway had known. Somehow, some way, she had known. And that meant the question was no longer just who was chasing her. The question was, who is she to him? Everything you think you know about this story, stop. Because Chapter 4 is where the truth starts coming apart at the seams. If you are not subscribed yet, do it right now. Hit that like button if Arya already has your whole heart. And drop a comment below, do you think Zara is telling the truth about who Arya's father is? Because Hyun-soo is about to find out something that changes everything. Keep watching. His analyst found it on the 4th day. The note had been written on the back of a torn confidentiality agreement, the kind used by high-end law firms when handling sensitive client disclosures. The firm, Park & Associates. A firm that, 3 years ago, had been retained by a shell corporation connected, through 7 layers of careful misdirection, to Hyun-soo's own organization. He sat with that information for a long time. She was a paralegal, his analyst confirmed. Zara Calloway worked at Park & Associates for 4 years. Resigned abruptly 18 months ago. No forwarding address. No digital footprint after that. Resigned, Hyun-soo repeated. That's what the record says. He knew what resigned often meant in situations like this. It meant she had found something. And someone had made sure she understood the cost of saying so. What was she working on before she left? His analyst hesitated. That's where it gets complicated. Her entire case file for the last 6 months of employment was wiped. Professionally. Not a crash, a deliberate deletion by someone with administrative access. Hyun-soo stood, walked to the window. Someone had erased Zara Calloway from a law firm's records. Someone with enough reach to do it cleanly. And she had, before vanishing, left her daughter at his gate with a note claiming Arya was his. He had exactly one question now. And it was the kind of question that, once answered, could not be unanswered. Pull my personal travel records, he said quietly. 27 months ago. All of them. He remembered her. Not immediately. Not the way you remember someone whose face you studied. The way you remember someone who said one true thing in a room full of performance. A conference. Legal intermediaries, financial consultants, the careful machinery of business conducted at a distance from its consequences. He had been there for 4 hours and said fewer than 50 words. She had been there as support staff, documents, logistics, the invisible architecture that keeps rooms like that functioning. They had spoken once. Briefly. In an elevator. She had looked at him directly, not with recognition of who he was, not with the careful deference his name usually produced, just directly. Like a person looking at another person. She had said, "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." He had said, "So do you." She had smiled. Small. Real. The elevator opened. She walked out. He never saw her again. Or so he had believed. He sat now with the timeline his analyst had built and did the arithmetic that he had been avoiding. 27 months ago. Arya was 7 months old. He pressed his fingers to his mouth and stayed very still for a very long time. "Sir," Marco said from the doorway. "She's mine," Hyun-soo said. Not a question. The quiet arrival of a fact he had not been ready for and could not now unknow. Find Zara Calloway. Not for questioning. He paused. Because whoever is hunting her is now, whether they know it or not, hunting my daughter. And that means they have made, he said softly, the last mistake they will ever make. She was located on the 7th day. Not by his team finding her, by her choosing, finally, to make contact. A message. Routed through 4 servers. Untraceable unless you had the precise tools his team had. It contained one file. He opened it. What Zara Calloway had discovered 18 months ago, the thing that had cost her everything, her job, her name, her safety, eventually her ability to keep her own child, was a financial network. Sophisticated. Sprawling. Moving money through charitable foundations, tech startups, and legal firms across 11 countries. On its own, not remarkable. Except for where the money was going. It was funding the systematic elimination of witnesses in 4 ongoing federal investigations. And the man at the center of it, the architect of the entire network, was someone Hyun-soo recognized immediately. Someone he had done business with. Carefully. At arm's length. 2 years ago. A man named Director Lim Sang-chul. South Korean intelligence. Officially retired. Unofficially still very much operational, and deeply terrified of what Zara had found. She had stumbled into it accidentally. Had flagged it to a senior partner at the firm. The senior partner had called Lim Sang-chul within the hour. And Zara Calloway had spent the 18 months since then running for her life. Hyun-soo closed the file. He understood now. All of it. Why she had run. Why she had left Arya here. Why she had chosen his gate specifically, not because she knew he was Arya's father, but because she had researched him thoroughly enough to know that he was the one man in the world with both the resources and the personal motivation to be untouchable by Lim Sang-chul. She hadn't come to him out of desperation alone. She had come to him because she was the smartest person in a very deadly room. And she had bet her daughter's life on his character. She came in from the cold on the 8th night. His team brought her to the compound, not in restraints, not under threat. He had sent word through the same server route she'd used. You are safe here. Come in. She walked through the door and stopped. She was thinner than the woman in the camera footage, coiled tight with the particular tension of someone who had not slept properly in months. Her locks were down now, loose around her face. There was a bruise, fading, along her left jaw she hadn't bothered to conceal. She scanned the room in 2 seconds flat. Every exit. Every person. Where he was standing. Then her eyes moved past him. To the baby monitor on the side table. Something in her face broke open, just briefly, just for a moment, before she locked it back down. She's sleeping, he said quietly. She's safe. She's been safe. Zara looked at him. Her eyes were dark and exhausted and ferociously intelligent. You hummed to her, she said. You said she likes it. I didn't know if you would. I didn't know if I would either, he admitted. A silence settled between them, not hostile, not easy. The silence of 2 people standing inside a situation larger than either of them had built alone. You know everything, she said. It wasn't a question. I know enough, he replied. I want to hear the rest from you. She sat down. And for the first time in 18 months, Zara Calloway told the whole truth to someone who had the power to do something about it. She talked for 2 hours. No notes. No pauses to gather herself. Just the clean, precise account of a woman who had been carrying every detail of a nightmare in her head for a year and a half because writing it down was too dangerous. Hyun-soo listened without interrupting. When she finished, the room was very quiet. You've been alone with this the entire time, he said. I had Arya for 7 months, she said. Then I didn't even have that. Her voice stayed level, but her hands, folded in her lap, pressed together hard enough that her knuckles shifted. I need you to understand something, he said carefully. I am not a good man. I don't say that as humility. I say it so you understand clearly what kind of help I am able to offer and what it will cost the people who have been hunting you. She looked at him steadily. I know what you are. I chose your gate specifically. Then you know this ends violently for Lim Sang-chul. I know, she said. Quietly. Without flinching. He made it violent when he decided my life was acceptable collateral. Hyun-soo nodded slowly. Then he said the thing he had been sitting with since he did the arithmetic 5 days ago. She hums back, you know. When I hum to her, she makes the same sound. Zara's eyes filled, fast, unexpected, immediately controlled. She does that, she whispered. She has your jaw, he said. And your eyes. She has your stillness, Zara said. It scared me at first. A 7-month-old who just watches everything like she's filing it away. For the first time in the entire conversation, Kang Hyun-soo almost smiled. Speech balloon comment bait. At this point, do you trust Hyun-soo? Or do you think Zara just walked into a different kind of danger? Drop your answer below. This story is about to shift completely. What happened next took 11 days and left no fingerprints. Hyun-soo moved the way he always moved, quietly, precisely, through channels that existed in the spaces between official systems. He had spent 15 years building relationships with people who needed things done and could not ask officially. Now he called every debt. Lim Sang-chul's financial network was exposed, not through a dramatic confrontation, but through the careful, surgical delivery of Zara's evidence to 3 separate federal prosecutors across 2 countries, routed through sources that could not be traced back to either of them. The foundations froze. The shell companies collapsed inward. The senior partner at Park & Associates, the man who had made the call that put Zara in danger, was arrested on a Tuesday morning while eating breakfast. Lim Sang-chul himself lasted 4 more days before the walls closed in entirely. He did not go quietly. He made calls, issued threats, sent 2 men to an address in the city that he believed Zara was connected to. The 2 men did not report back. Hyun-soo did not explain what had happened to them. He didn't need to. On the 11th day, Lim Sang-chul was taken into custody by South Korean federal authorities, facing charges across 4 countries. Zara sat in the compound's main room and watched the news break on a laptop screen. She didn't celebrate, didn't cry, didn't speak. She just breathed. Slowly, fully, like someone who had forgotten how. A month later, the compound was quieter. Not empty, it was never empty, but different. There was a baby in it now. A baby who had opinions about breakfast and specific feelings about which blanket she slept under and an absolute refusal to nap unless someone was nearby. Zara had a room. Her own. She hadn't been asked to leave and hadn't looked for a reason to go. It wasn't simple. Nothing about their situation was simple. 2 people who had met once in an elevator, connected by a child neither of them had planned for, navigating a future built from the wreckage of someone else's cruelty. But there were mornings, early ones, before the compound fully woke, when Hyun-soo would be in the kitchen and Zara would come in with Arya on her hip, and the 3 of them would exist in the same space without performance, without agenda, without the weight of everything that had brought them here. Just 3 people, finding out slowly what they were to each other. One morning Zara looked at him across the kitchen and said, "I didn't choose your gate because I thought you'd be kind." "I know," he said. "I chose it because I thought you'd be capable." Also correct. "But you were kind," she said. That part one didn't calculate. He looked at her. At Arya, who was watching him with those still, filing everything eyes. "Neither did I," he said. And that, in a story built on desperation and mystery and a woman running through the rain, turned out to be the most unexpected thing of all. She left her daughter at a gate belonging to the most dangerous man alive. Not because she gave up. Because she refused to. Zara Calloway spent 18 months outrunning a monster, alone, hunted, carrying a secret that could bring down empires. And when she had nothing left, she did the one thing no one expected. She made a calculated bet on a man the world called Ruthless, and discovered he was capable of more than either of them knew. Kang Hyun-soo spent 15 years building walls thick enough to keep everything soft out of his world. One 7-month-old girl in a white blanket dismantled every single one. Some stories begin with desperation. Some begin with mystery. This one began with a mother on her knees in the rain, choosing her daughter's life over her own comfort. And that choice, quiet, violent in its own way, completely human, changed everything. If this story wrecked you in the best possible way, share it. Right now. Send it to someone who needs to be reminded that the most desperate moments sometimes lead to the most extraordinary places. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this channel is built for people who feel stories deeply and want more of them. And leave a comment below. Who moved you more, Zara's courage or Hyun-soo's transformation? I read every single one. The next episode is already being built. and I promise you it will hit even harder than this. Don't go anywhere.